Okay, let's just get right into it. There's this massive paradox happening in generative AI right now. On the one hand, you've got the whole AI gold rush story. You see the headlines, the crazy stock prices, but then on the other hand, down in the trenches where global companies are actually trying to make this stuff work, a totally different, much tougher reality is playing out. So that's what we're going to unpack, this huge gap between the hype and the reality.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. The hype? A projected market of $3.5 trillion by 2033. Incredible, right? But the reality for businesses? A staggering 95% of companies are getting zero, and I mean zero, measurable return on their AI investments. Not a low return, nothing. So what on earth is going on? How can both of these things possibly be true at the same time?
To figure that out, we've got to look at AI's two competing realities. You've got this unprecedented, explosive growth, slamming right into an unfulfilled promise for most organizations out there.
So let's start with the growth side. The numbers are just wild. In 2024, the corporate adoption rate for Gen AI hit 71%. That's up from just 33% the year before. That is one of the fastest tech adoption curves we have ever seen. On the surface, it looks like an absolute revolution.
But then you see this number. Only 5% of the big, strategic, enterprise-grade AI projects actually make it into production. So you've got employees everywhere playing with these tools, which is great. But the complex systems, the ones that could actually drive real business results, are failing at an unbelievable rate.
And this table just pulls the whole conflict together. It creates what the source material calls an adoption mirage. We see all this activity and we assume there's progress, but it's really just masking a huge failure to deploy the high-impact stuff. And that 3.7x ROI number you hear about? Well, that's getting totally skewed by a tiny handful of companies hitting home runs, while literally 95% are left with absolutely nothing to show for it. So how do we make sense of all this chaos? Well, believe it or not, this phase has a name. It's being called the Great Refinement. And the best way to understand it is through a classic idea in tech, the trough of disillusionment.
If you've ever seen Gartner's hype cycle, you know what I'm talking about. After any new technology hits that peak of inflated expectations, it always falls into this trough. It's a totally predictable, and honestly, a necessary phase, where all the initial excitement fades and the hard, messy realities of actually making it work set in. And that is exactly where generative AI is right now. And there are three big things pulling it down into this trough. First, a failure to prove real business value, to actually connect a project to the bottom line. Second, the shocking costs. We're talking $5 to $20 million for major projects. And third, a governance nightmare. Suddenly, things like hallucinations and data privacy aren't just academic ideas, they're urgent problems that CEOs have to deal with.
But here's the most important part. This trough is not an AI winter. It's not a sign that the tech failed. It's a necessary course correction. Think of it like a giant market filter that's weeding out all the projects that were just driven by FOMO, fear of missing out. And it's forcing everyone to get serious and focus on what actually works.
Now, what happens when you have a filter this powerful? You get a huge gap. It's creating a massive divide between a small group of visionary companies that are getting it right and the vast majority who are just stuck. Let's take a closer look at this great divide. And the data shows a really clear split. You've got about 16% of companies, the visionaries, the reinvention-ready ones, and they are just pulling away from everybody else. Meanwhile, the other 84%, the lagging majority, are pretty much stuck in what we could call pilot purgatory, totally unable to scale their experiments. So what's their secret? What are these visionaries doing differently? Well, it boils down to four things. One, for them, AI is a CEO-level priority. Two, they don't just staple AI onto old ways of doing things, they redesign their core workflows around it. Three, they do the hard, unglamorous work of building a solid data foundation first. And finally, they have a real plan for reskilling their people. And the payoff? Get this, 2.5 times higher revenue growth than their peers. But for that lagging majority? Well, you know the old saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. The roadblocks are deeply human. Just look at the public sector. 58% of employees are afraid AI is going to replace them. That creates this huge trust deficit and a cultural resistance that no piece of tech, no matter how cool, can overcome on its own. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? The good news is those visionary companies have basically created a playbook for success. It's a blueprint for how to get through this post-type world.
And this playbook is built on 3 main pillars. This isn't about finding one killer app. It's about building a real systemic capability across your strategy, your technology, and, this is the big one, your people and processes.
So for strategy, let's look at Morgan Stanley. They didn't go off and build some separate, shiny AI tool. No, they embedded their custom AI assistant right into the platform their wealth managers already use every single day. And they trained it on over 100,000 of their own internal documents. That creates a competitive moat that is incredibly hard for anyone else to copy. Now, on the tech side, a key practice is something called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. Samsung uses this to fight hallucinations. What they do is connect their AI models to a curated internal knowledge base. This basically forces the AI's answers to be grounded in verifiable, company-approved facts, which is absolutely crucial for building user trust. And for the people pillar, this example from Deutsche Telekom is just brilliant. They used AI to solve the human challenges of AI. They built a Gen AI coaching engine that gives personalized, real-time training to 8,000 of their agents right inside their workflow. It boosted performance and customer satisfaction. A total win-win.
So this table sums up that playbook perfectly. From embedding AI where the work actually happens, like Morgan Stanley, to industrializing prompt engineering like Uber, and investing in making your people fluent with the tools like Visa, these are the real, concrete actions that are separating the winners from everyone else. So where do we go from here? You know, a lot of companies seem to be just waiting for the next big model, a GPT-6 maybe, to come along and magically make all of this easier. But what if that's exactly the wrong way to think about it? The sources we looked at suggest the opposite is about to happen. See, the next frontier of AI models, it's not about making them more refined. It's about making them more experimental. The researchers are working on brand new ideas like multi-token prediction and advanced reasoning. This is actually going to increase the complexity, not simplify it. It's going to make the gap between the companies that are ready and those that aren't even wider. And all this points to a fundamental shift in what these models will even do. In the future, they'll be way more than just a fancy copywriter. They're going to become what one expert calls a semantic risk sentry. Now think about that. Imagine a tool that doesn't just answer your question, but it actively analyzes your intent. It detects hidden bias in your language, and it flags logical problems in your strategy before you make a mistake. That's a whole new ballgame. And that leaves us with one final crucial question. The way forward here isn't about waiting for some magic technology to arrive. The winners are going to be the ones who embrace this refinement imperative, the ones doing the hard, deliberate work of building the strategic, technical, and human foundation today. So the real question is your organization waiting for better AI, or are you building the foundation to win with it now?